She suddenly realized that the lame homeless man she met on the street corner was her boyfriend who had disappeared for 2 years, and the heroine did not recognize him. With an anxious and regretful mood, Jung-hwa rushed out of the door like crazy, and then ran in the direction from which he came. No matter how Jung-hwa looked, he could no longer see the familiar figure. Jung-hwa curled up on the side of the road, crying bitterly, and every time he beat his chest, it was as desperate and suffocating as if he was performing cardiopulmonary resuscitation. The most painful thing in the world is to miss the person you love the most. What is more painful is that the lover is clearly in front of him, but Cheol-min dare not recognize him because of his inferiority complex. Cheol-min clearly remembers that he and Jung-hwa first met in a security booth on a rainy night. At that time, Cheol-min, who had just become a security guard, was concentrating on watching TV in the security booth. Suddenly, Jung-hwa pushed the door in and sat down naturally. Then Jung-hwa chattered excitedly while taking out a bunch of food and enthusiastically stuffed it into Cheol-min's hands. At first, Cheol-min was very confused, but soon he noticed that this beautiful girl couldn't see anything. So Cheol-min took the initiative to say hello, but he didn't expect that he scared Jung-hwa as soon as he said it. Jung-hwa hurriedly asked who you are. Where is your grandfather? It turned out that Jung-hwa came here almost every day after get off work to watch TV with her former security grandfather. She ate all kinds of snacks while watching TV, so her behavior just now was so casual. However, when she learned the truth, she immediately took back the gift with an apology, and then got up and prepared to leave. As a result, it rained heavily outside the house, and Jung-hwa could only wander at the door. Looking at the disabled girl trapped by the rain, the soft-hearted Cheol-min not only took the initiative to come out, but also invited her to watch TV before leaving. The program was also changed to Jung-hwa's favorite TV program. Although she could not see the screen but only heard the voices of the actors, Jung-hwa was deeply attracted by the plot. Cheol-min, who was standing next to him, was fascinated by Jung-hwa's focused expression. He shyly withdrew his gaze until a thunder sounded in the sky. This was the first time Cheol-min felt the feeling of heartbeat. However, happy times are always short. After the rain stopped, Jung-hwa got up and prepared to leave, but before leaving, he expressed his gratitude. Jung-hwa gave Cheol-min the rice balls he had prepared as a midnight snack, and after just a small taste, Cheol-min was captured by the deliciousness. So much so that after returning home late at night, Cheol-min still missed the beauty and food. In the past 30 years, Cheol-min's life was broken and dim, but at this moment, he seemed to see the light. He also had some expectations for the future that he never cared about. The next night, Jung-hwa came to the security booth as usual and watched TV with Cheol-min. However, Jung-hwa suddenly asked embarrassedly if the windows could be opened because Jung-hwa's nose was very sensitive. At this time, Cheol-min realized that it was his sweaty feet that gave off the smell. So he hurriedly put on the dirty shoes awkwardly. Since it was the second time for the two to meet, Jung-hwa introduced himself when they parted, but Cheol-min did not reveal his name. He just shook his hand back carefully when the other party took the initiative. However, at the moment when his fingers touched, he suddenly withdrew it as if he had been electrocuted. As a seed of love sprouted in his heart, Cheol-min also began to pay attention to personal image and hygiene. Not only did he wash his feet every day, he also changed into brand new shoes, not only planted green plants in the security booth, but also opened the windows for ventilation before Jung-hwa arrived. After finishing these preparations, Cheol-min would quietly close his eyes, feeling the world of the blind while waiting for the sound of the cane to approach. And Jung-hwa did not disappoint him. He smelled his change as soon as he entered the door. But Cheol-min, whose little thoughts were discovered, suddenly felt embarrassed. In a panic, Cheol-min bumped into Jung-hwa. Fortunately, the TV series started at this time, and the two gradually shifted their attention to the plot. Because the male and female protagonists in the play are facing separation, the sensitive Jung-hwa also shed tears unconsciously. Jung-hwa said that perhaps because she can't see, she can hear people's voices better than ordinary people, and is more easily infected by emotions. Although she can't empathize, Cheol-min has been listening patiently until Jung-hwa suddenly asked Cheol-min if he is handsome, and he became at a loss again. Objectively speaking, Cheol-min is not the type of pretty boy that most little girls like. On the contrary, he has strong lines and a slightly rough appearance, but he is also full of masculinity. It was time to leave again. Jung-hwa was originally very happy because of this beautiful night, but a horn suddenly sounded behind him, and Jung-hwa fell to the ground in shock. The beer beside him was also spilled. Cheol-min ran over immediately after seeing it. After discovering that Jung-hwa's ankle was cut by the fragments, he urgently helped to deal with it. Not only that, because Jung-hwa's injured foot was more inconvenient to move, Cheol-min decided to escort her home. When the two of them arrived near Jung-hwa's house by car, Cheol-min couldn't bear to see Jung-hwa walking, so he took the initiative to offer to carry her upstairs. Jung-hwa did not refuse, but just said with a sly smile that he must not regret it later. Just like that, Jung-hwa groped and lay on Cheol-min's back. Under the warm yellow light, there was a shy and excited blind girl, and under the solid and broad arms, there was a mature, stable, and reliable young man. But if you look at it from a third-person perspective, they are a couple in love. At first, Cheol-min didn't understand why Jung-hwa asked her not to regret it. Until she saw the super long and high steps, Cheol-min's legs softened after realizing it. But Cheol-min didn't want to show weakness, so even though he was already tired and panting, Cheol-min gritted his teeth and carried Jung-hwa on his back, climbing up step by step. However, before he had time to catch his breath, he helped to dredge the blocked sewer at Jung-hwa's request. The obstruction was the panties with Mickey Mouse pattern that Jung-hwa had been unable to find. For a moment, the awkward atmosphere spread in the air, but fortunately, Jung-hwa's mind turned quickly and resolved the awkwardness with humor. Then, in order to repay Cheol-min's help, she proposed that they go to a concert together on the weekend. Although Cheol-min showed some reluctance in his words, he always had an unconcealable smile on his lips on the way home. And Jung-hwa also attached great importance to this date. For this reason, she specially made a new hairstyle and wore a new skirt on the agreed day. She put on makeup that she hadn't worn for a long time and sprayed perfume that she hadn't sprayed for a long time, but because she couldn't see her appearance. Jung-hwa dressed a little exaggerated, but Cheol-min thought it was very cute. Maybe this is how love can make people ignore the flaws of appearance. Not only that, when everyone was enjoying the music at the concert, Cheol-min's eyes and heart were all on Jung-hwa. As an orphan, he felt that he was blessed by God for the first time. Otherwise, how could he meet such a cute and beautiful girl? And Jung-hwa hadn't been as happy as today for a long time. After the concert, Jung-hwa took the initiative to bring Cheol-min to his favorite barbecue restaurant. At first, the two of them just chatted about this and that, but after a few glasses of soju, Jung-hwa suddenly asked about Cheol-min's past. So Jung-hwa began to ask Cheol-min about his past, but unexpectedly, the usually gentle Cheol-min suddenly became impatient. He even warned Jung-hwa with an extremely cold attitude not to meddle in other people's business. Originally, Jung-hwa just wanted to get closer to each other through in-depth communication, but Cheol-min's reaction made Jung-hwa suddenly feel that she was not worthy of establishing friendship with healthy people. In this way, a romantic date ended in a quarrel. Since then, Jung-hwa has never been to the security booth again, and the two of them have a brief encounter like a meteor passing by. A spark burst out for a moment, and then quietly died out. Although Cheol-min quickly realized his mistake after saying that, he didn't know how to ease the relationship between the two with his relatively single emotional cognition. Therefore, he could only seek help from his friends, but his friends of many years not only did not comfort him in the first time. Instead, he severely questioned Cheol-min why he hadn't contacted him for 4 years. The answer given by Cheol-min was that he had been in prison for 4 years and 3 months. It turned out that Cheol-min was a boxer 4 years ago, but in order to earn more income, he worked part-time as a violent debt collector. As a result, during a mission, the other party, unable to pay back the money, poured gasoline on himself, set himself on fire, and jumped from the 3rd floor. Although the man did not die in the end, and Cheol-min was not the direct murderer, he was still sued and sentenced to 5 years in prison. After being released from prison, Cheol-min chose to retire and started his current security work. In his spare time, he would go to the sanatorium to visit the man who set himself on fire and jumped from the building to make up for his inner debt. Because his past life was too dark, when Jung-hwa asked Cheol-min about it, he would be angry. But the main reason was that Cheol-min was afraid that Jung-hwa would stay away from him completely after knowing the truth. After all, no good girl would be willing to be with a man with a criminal record. But his friends think that open and honest conversation is the best way to resolve conflicts. It is also the best medicine to promote feelings. Even if the other party really couldn't accept it, it was an explanation for this relationship. That night, Jung-hwa went home from get-off work. Suddenly, she heard a noise at the door, and then a man's voice came into her ears. But that man was not Cheol-min, but her direct supervisor. It turned out that since her parents passed away, Jung-hwa, who had no one to rely on, found a job as a switchboard operator with the help of her friends. Originally, this job was okay, but because of her good looks, Jung-hwa frequently encountered sexual harassment from her superiors at work. Although Jung-hwa hated this behavior, she could only endure it silently in order to keep her hard-earned job. Unexpectedly, what she got in return was the boss's worsening. The boss broke into the room without waiting to be invited. Then he couldn't wait to take out a necklace and approached Jung-hwa under the pretext of giving a gift. Jung-hwa was frightened and immediately pushed him away, but he slapped her in anger. Helpless, Jung-hwa could only grope for items to defend herself. But how could a weak blind girl fight against a healthy adult man? Soon, Jung-hwa was pinned down, just when her boss was about to succeed. Cheol-min, who came to apologize, arrived just in time. Seeing his beloved woman being humiliated, he immediately punched his boss like crazy, causing him to spit blood and look for teeth on the ground. But this still couldn't eliminate his inner anger, so he hit more and more severely. At this time, Jung-hwa was huddled in the corner in fear, but reason still made her stop Cheol-min in time, otherwise it might be fatal. As Jung-hwa shouted at Cheol-min to stop, although the roar made Cheol-min stop. But Cheol-min was still unwilling to let him go, so Cheol-min covered his boss's mouth with both hands and then broke one of his fingers as a punishment. After the boss left crying, Cheol-min came to Jung-hwa distressed, wanting to say something to comfort him, but didn't know how to start. The whole room fell silent for a while, and finally, it was Jung-hwa who broke the silence first, complaining that Cheol-min shouldn't hit people. Because if she angered her boss, she would probably be fired, and then she would completely lose her means of making a living. For a blind person, life is already very hard, and if she loses her source of income, she will be completely forced into a desperate situation. Although Cheol-min sincerely said that he could help Jung-hwa in the future, Jung-hwa didn't want to be pitied or given charity. Besides, Cheol-min was just a stranger she hadn't met a few times, and she couldn't put her life on a stranger. In this way, the two broken hearts pulled further apart, but since then, there was suddenly a man beside Jung-hwa. No matter where she went, the shadow was silently guarding not far away. Perhaps he was moved by this persistence. That night, Jung-hwa took the initiative to come to the security booth and told Cheol-min that she had resigned. Jung-hwa said that if you want to fulfill your promise to help me, take me out for a walk tomorrow. Looking at Jung-hwa, who had regained his spirits, Cheol-min was happy and a little distressed. At the same time, the look in his eyes looking at each other also poured more intense love. The next day, Cheol-min came to Jung-hwa's door as promised, in order to prevent Jung-hwa from feeling lonely again. Cheol-min also brought a puppy, and the puppy was named Woo-yu. The meaning is that life will be worry-free in the future. Then he took one person and one dog to the sun-dappled mountain path and the romantic lake surrounded by greenery. Cheol-min said that he lived in an orphanage on the opposite bank when he was a child, but unfortunately the orphanage was flooded later. The only memory of his childhood was gone, and it seemed that Jung-hwa felt his sadness. Jung-hwa picked up 2 smooth pebbles as a gift to comfort him and as a token of their love. Beautiful mountains and rivers, golden flower fields, sweet love quietly spread, and with the nourishment of love, Cheol-min was no longer decadent as usual. He started running and fitness, and returned to the boxing gym. Not only that, he also renovated the originally dim little home. Even to facilitate Jung-hwa's movement, all the edges and corners in the room were smoothed. And Jung-hwa was bathed in this love and gradually found the smile before he became blind. However, on this day, Jung-hwa longed to know what his lover looked like. But because he couldn't see with his eyes, he could only trace and outline with his hands. It happened that the afternoon sun shone through the window. It was reflected on the faces of the 2 people facing each other at close range. The atmosphere of love was coated with golden, soft light. Although it was still dark in front of her eyes, Jung-hwa's heart was full of light. Love is indeed the best medicine to save the world's suffering. After that, they also lived a happy life that people envied the most. But what Jung-hwa didn't know was that Cheol-min helped her open a small shop to make money. He had been desperately participating in boxing matches. Although he won every time, he was beaten black and blue every time. Once Jung-hwa touched it out with his hand, so as not to let her worry. After that, Cheol-min asked his friends to cut the bruises with a knife in advance. Cheol-min's love has always been so strong but silent. Fortunately, Jung-hwa never let this love go in vain, and has always been giving back with his heart. However, fate always likes to play jokes on people, and always gives you a heavy blow when you feel happy. On this day, Jung-hwa brought Cheol-min to the ashes of her deceased parents, because Jung-hwa felt that it was necessary to introduce her to her parents with their current relationship. However, when Jung-hwa seemed relieved to tell the reason for her parents' death, Cheol-min suddenly fell into endless self-blame and pain. It turned out that more than 4 years ago, Jung-hwa, who was about to graduate from college, drove her parents out for an outing. Unexpectedly, on the night of returning home, she encountered a person covered in fire jumping from the upstairs. Because she was too absorbed in watching, Jung-hwa did not notice the oncoming truck, resulting in a serious car accident. Her parents died in that accident, and her eyes were also blinded due to injuries at that time. Jung-hwa has always felt extremely guilty because it was her carelessness that led to the tragedy. But since she met Cheol-min, her heart has been relieved a lot. Because Jung-hwa felt that her parents did not blame her. On the contrary, they have been protecting her. Otherwise, how could such a good man be sent to appear in her broken life? But what she didn't know was that the person on fire was the one that Cheol-min had been collecting debts for, and Cheol-min was also watching the car accident from upstairs. Before this, Cheol-min had always been very grateful that Jung-hwa was like a beam of light, illuminating her dark life, but she didn't expect it was her own darkness. Let Jung-hwa, who could have been shining, be stained with an indelible spot. Cheol-min couldn't forgive himself and didn't know how to face Jung-hwa in the future. He could only vent all his emotions on the sandbag. However, when he finally mustered up the courage and prepared to go back to face the problem, he found that there was no one at home. Only the food that was spilled on the ground told him that Jung-hwa might have encountered an accident. Fortunately, it was just a false alarm in the end, and Jung-hwa didn't suffer any serious injuries. When Cheol-min rushed to the hospital, she had already treated the wound. But the doctor told Cheol-min another fact. As long as someone donates or buys corneas within a month, Jung-hwa can regain her vision. Otherwise, she will be permanently blind. Cheol-min was very excited after hearing this, and insisted on buying corneas for Jung-hwa to undergo surgery. But Jung-hwa flatly rejected this proposal. It turned out that Jung-hwa had always known that she had visual impairment caused by corneal damage, and had been waiting for someone to donate corneas, but until now, there has been no result. Although it is indeed possible to buy it with money, as an ordinary person, she simply cannot afford the high cost. And she didn't want Cheol-min to worry about money, so she simply chose to give up anyway. She has gradually adapted to the life of a blind person. However, Cheol-min could not agree, not to mention that he loved Jung-hwa deeply, and the guilt of the past also made her want to make up for it. So Cheol-min lied that he had savings, so that Jung-hwa could receive treatment with peace of mind. Then, in order to raise money, he found and agreed to go abroad with his gangster friend to fight an underground boxing match, but the premise was to advance half of the reward. In this way, Cheol-min, who had money, sent Jung-hwa to the hospital as he wished. Before parting, the two held each other's hands tightly, and Jung-hwa smiled and said that she must see Cheol-min as soon as she came out. So Jung-hwa asked Cheol-min to stay here and not go anywhere, and then we went home together and ran towards our tomorrow. Looking at Jung-hwa, who could not leave him, Cheol-min's eyes were full of worry and reluctance. Because he was not completely sure about the underground boxing match he was about to participate in, perhaps they would never see each other again after this separation. Soon, Cheol-min came to a foreign country and changed to a new 3-no identity. Then, after several twists and turns, he walked into the arena full of death. It is said that there are no rules in the boxing matches here. No matter what means are used, as long as the opponent can be beaten to death or knocked unconscious, the victory is won. Looking at the huge iron cage in front of him, Cheol-min felt nervous and scared for the first time, because he was afraid that the girl who woke up in the hospital would never find him again. However, before he could prepare himself mentally, the fierce confrontation officially began with shouts one after another. Cheol-min's opponent is the ever-victorious general here. Not only is he stronger, but his shots are also very fierce. After several rounds of fierce confrontation, Cheol-min gradually fell into a disadvantage and was even knocked to the ground by his opponent many times. Just when he was on the verge of defeat, the arrogant opponent finally exposed a fatal flaw. Cheol-min immediately seized the opportunity and used up his last bit of strength to give the opponent a fatal blow, but this victory exchanged for blood and tears offended the loser. So soon after leaving the arena, Cheol-min was knocked to the ground by a speeding car. Then a cold knife stabbed into his body fiercely, and the sound of the car engine gradually faded away. The black street in the middle of the night fell into silence again, leaving only Cheol-min lying quietly on the cold ground with helpless groans, waiting for the blood to drain until death. Cheol-min suddenly thought of Jung-hwa in his dying moments. He wanted to know if the girl he loved deeply had come down from the operating table safely. Fortunately, Jung-hwa's operation was very successful, but there was no trace of joy on her face. Because the man who had promised not to leave disappeared from her life out of thin air, and even the police could not find any trace. What's worse is that the house full of memories of the two is about to be demolished. She did regain her light, but she also fell into darkness. On the day of moving, Jung-hwa suddenly received a package with a headband for girls. Although there was no signature or message, Jung-hwa was sure that it was related to Cheol-min. So she could not wait to go to the mailing address, and she saw the man who jumped off the building after being burned. And this was exactly what Cheol-min intended. It turned out that the night before Jung-hwa's operation, Cheol-min had thought about confessing everything about the car accident, but he really didn't have the courage to speak, and he was even more afraid that Jung-hwa would give up eye treatment after knowing the truth. So after some thought, Cheol-min decided to let another victim tell the truth on his behalf. When Jung-hwa learned the truth, her eyes were wet and red in an instant. At the same time, her contradictory heart also made her not know what to do. On one hand, he was the indirect murderer who broke up her family, and on the other hand, he helped her in desperation. The lover who made her see the light again, should she choose to hate or love? Should she continue to retaliate or let go? Jung-hwa couldn't make a decision at all. Before she knew it, Jung-hwa had strolled to the lake where she and Cheol-min had fallen in love, fiddling with the pebble that symbolized love. Suddenly, Jung-hwa seemed to have made up her mind and held the stone tightly in her palm. After all, love won in this game. Later, Jung-hwa, who had fully recovered, took the initiative to learn ceramic crafts so that she could depict Cheol-min's appearance from memory. But no matter how she tried, all she got was a vague and cold clay figure. 2 years passed in a flash. According to the original plan of the two, Jung-hwa opened a clay shop in the local area. Although it was not large in scale, it was well known. During this period, she attracted countless people to pursue her with her talent and beauty, but Jung-hwa refused every time and even wore a diamond ring to swear that she was married. Because her heart has long been occupied by Cheol-min, even if Cheol-min still hasn't come back, she firmly believes that the two will meet again. Since Jung-hwa was once a disabled person, she knows the difficulties of disabled people, so she will go to the nursing home to volunteer whenever she is free. This day, when she came to visit a familiar old man as usual, the man in the next bed suddenly turned his head and looked at her quietly. And that person turned out to be Cheol-min, who had disappeared for 2 years. It turned out that Cheol-min was fortunately rescued at the beginning, but because of serious injuries, he stayed in a large hospital for 2 years. He was transferred to this nursing home a few days ago, but looking at the lover he had been thinking about for 2 years, he held back his tears and slowly turned his face away. Because he is now disfigured and disabled, he feels that he is not worthy of the bright and beautiful Jung-hwa. But how could fate slip away so easily? After massaging the old man's body, Jung-hwa smiled and came to Cheol-min to help him with rehabilitation training. The most painful thing in the world is that the person you love most is close at hand, but you can't recognize him. In order not to be recognized, Cheol-min dared not say a word, and could only hold the pebbles in his hands tightly, venting the pain and love in his heart. But even so, Jung-hwa's hands still paused for a moment, because she had felt the touch of her back countless times 2 years ago. But when she saw the unfamiliar name on the bedside and the scarred face, the expectation in her eyes was once again unfulfilled. And until Jung-hwa left, Cheol-min's right hand, which was tightly holding the pebbles, slowly lost its strength. The throat, as tight as a string, also twitched uncontrollably. After getting better, Cheol-min took advantage of Jung-hwa's absence to walk into her clay shop and bought a safflower. Then, when the clerk was not paying attention, he quietly took his little turtle away. This little turtle had accompanied him through countless lonely days and nights, and witnessed his sweet love with Jung-hwa. But now, in order not to become a burden to Jung-hwa, he decided to leave here completely. But Woo-yu, who had grown up, suddenly rushed towards him, and when she fell to the ground, Jung-hwa followed closely. After a few days, the two met again. Jung-hwa recognized Cheol-min at a glance and enthusiastically wanted to send him home. But Cheol-min just wanted to leave quickly, so he smiled and shook his head and hurried away. At this moment, Woo-yu began to become uneasy, shaking his tail and calling anxiously. Perhaps only it knows how heartbroken and reluctant Cheol-min is at this moment, waiting for Jung-hwa to return to the store. Then she found that the little turtle was missing, and she immediately asked the clerk, but the clerk didn't know. Just as she was confused, Wu Yu behind her kept calling again, and she seemed to think of something in an instant. Then Jung-hwa asked the clerk in disbelief whether a lame man had been here. And when she got a positive answer, she finally dared to be sure that the pale and thin lame man was her boyfriend, who had disappeared for 2 years. Jung-hwa rushed out of the room and ran in the direction she came from. There was a sourness in her throat. She tried to shout out, but she could only squeeze out a broken sob. However, as people came and went, the man who had illuminated her disappeared in the darkness again. But Jung-hwa couldn't give up, so he drove to the sanatorium in a hurry. But he was told halfway that Cheol-min had been discharged 2 weeks ago. Jung-hwa, whose hopes were dashed again, collapsed and stopped by the roadside. But just when she was discouraged, a familiar place slowly emerged in her mind. At the same time, Cheol-min released the little turtle on the sparkling seashore. Fate made him say goodbye to his beloved girl in this way. However, just as he looked around and felt sad about the changes in things and people, Jung-hwa's voice suddenly sounded behind him. This was the beginning. Jung-hwa complained that Cheol-min shouldn't have left without keeping his promise, but as he spoke, his words were filled with longing. And Cheol-min also put aside the so-called inferiority and guilt in the crying of his lover and hugged him tightly in his arms. Only You is directed by Song Il-gon starring So Ji-sub and Han Hyo-joo, a romantic movie released in 2011. By chance, the blind Jung-hwa and the former prisoner Cheol-min went from knowing each other to falling in love. Originally, both of them had unbearable pasts, but with each other's company and healing, they pieced their broken lives together again. The meeting of Cheol-min and Jung-hwa began at the most desolate moment of each other. Their feelings have nothing to do with worldly conditions and are rooted in the resonance of the soul. This purity makes people reflect that in a materialistic society, true love may be the mutual attraction of two hearts after stripping off external labels. Well, today's movie sharing ends here. Welcome to like, comment, and forward. Thank you for your patience in watching. Looking forward to meeting you next time.